This video is going to be a bit different than what you typically see on this channel, and it's not because we've never done true crime. It's just been quite some time, and we haven't done a whole lot of it here. But I do want to talk about a no-body case out of Boston. It's the Ana Walshe case. Ana Walshe, young mother, went missing earlier this month, beginning of January, beginning of the new year. And the case resonates with me because it is a no-body case, beyond the normal, typical sadness associated with such a tragedy. I went on Twitter 3 days ago, and a TV station in Boston, 7 News Boston WHDH, tweeted, "Watch," they have a video. Prosecutors go through the long list of Google searches allegedly made by Brian Walshe, that's Anna's husband, while using his son's iPad the morning he claimed his wife, Ana Walshe, was last seen, and beyond. And then right below that, there was a reply, and a gentleman writes, "All this is great, but at the end of the day, there is no body. They don't know how she was killed. They honestly can't even prove she is dead. A good attorney will get him off." I don't often reply to such tweets, but here I guess in the moment I decided to do so, and I replied, "Respectfully disagree. Spent years reporting on a no-body case that resulted in murder convictions for 2 defendants. Forensic and circumstantial evidence were the backbone of the case. Hashtag Girly Chew Hossencofft. Hashtag September Sacrifice." Girly Chew Hossencofft was the victim in that New Mexico case, which goes clear back to 1999 and played out for several years afterwards. And September Sacrifice is a name of a book I wrote in 2004 about the case. I started covering it from the beginning in 1999, covered it for 2 television stations in Albuquerque, and then eventually wrote a book. And I've been thinking since I replied to the tweet there about the DNA evidence that's in this case. At the time it was said that the Hossencofft case is the most forensically intensive case in New Mexico history. Don't know if that's still the situation, but back then, boy, was it filled with all sorts of forensic evidence. I mean, we're talking the usual stuff: blood, saliva, soil, but then you had glitter, you had pink deer hair, you had little strips of mylar, and so much more. It was a forensically driven case, complemented by a lot of circumstantial evidence. In fact, right after the guilty verdict in defendant Linda Henning's trial in this case, she was the girlfriend of the estranged husband of the victim, the prosecutor said words to me in an interview to the effect of, "Sometimes circumstantial evidence can be a beautiful thing." So I thought it might be interesting because DNA and true crime are so often in the news. You've got the Idaho case with the Idaho 4, the young people that were murdered at the University of Idaho just off campus. You have this Boston case, and you probably know several others where DNA played a role. So I thought it might be interesting just to read some brief moments in this book associated with the DNA. That's a lot of this book. But I thought I'd start with chapter 17, which just is a very short chapter. It's all of a half page, followed by a full page, followed by just a few words at the top of the next page. So the equivalent of about 2 pages. So if you allow me, I'll just go ahead and read directly from the book. Chapter 17, September Sacrifice. At 9:58 a.m. on Thursday, September 23rd, 1999, forensic scientist Catherine Dickey loaded her first batch of DNA samples from the Hossencofft case into a machine that would analyze it and eventually spit out a unique code. This initial batch included stains from the panties found in Henning's car and the tiny spot of blood found on Girly's living room carpet. That spot was so small, Dickey used a machine in the lab's polymerase chain reaction, PCR, room to amplify it, effectively growing more of that DNA until she had an adequate amount for testing. Before going home that Thursday night, Dickey placed a second batch of DNA into the analyzer at 10:24 p.m. It contained blood found on the blouse, the panties, and the tarp found near Magdalena. When she returned to work Friday morning, Dickey looked at the results for the first batch of DNA. It included results for what was believed to be Girly's hair. The samples had been taken from Girly's hairbrush from her bathroom. This was how investigators first established a DNA profile or standard for Girly's DNA. Girly's profile did not match the DNA results for the blood-stained panties found in Henning's Honda Accord, nor did Girly's DNA match the blood found in the tiny spot on her carpet. The source of those other stains remained a mystery. But the ambiguity surrounding the bloody clothes and tarp found near Magdalena would end on that Friday, a time when many people were still praying for Girly's safe return. Dickie knew that the results from her second batch of DNA would be extremely critical to the future of the investigation. As the results for that second batch began to emerge from the analyzer, Dickie recognized the DNA profile right away. I was elated because I had fit a piece into the puzzle, but I was also horrified because I had basically just confirmed everyone's worst fear, and I was the only one who knew it, Dickie remembered. With all that blood, I knew, crap, she's dead. She really is dead. It's not a missing person case. It's a homicide. Dickie shared this information with her boss before going home that night, but she didn't tell anyone else. Why ruin everyone's weekend, she thought. Catherine and Dickie worked through the weekend. On Saturday, September 25th, 1999, she set out to identify the DNA profiles for Hossencofft and Henning. Investigators had already taken hair and saliva samples from Hossencofft after his recent arrest. Henning, while not a suspect, had agreed to come downtown and willfully provided hair and saliva samples after signing a consent form. Also that Saturday, Dickie began to extract DNA from two of Girly's toothbrushes, one from her apartment, the other from her workplace. Dickie returned to work on Sunday and loaded another batch of DNA into the analyzer at 7:58 that evening. More hard data, the solid type required by courts, emerged from the crime lab on September 27, 1999. Dickie was stunned by two results. She now knew whose blood was on Girly's couch and on that tiny stain on the living room carpet. That it came from the same person was no great surprise. Everybody had suspected it was Hossencofft's blood, but it was not. If you like this type of video where I read about DNA from this book that I wrote almost 20 years ago on a very high-profile case at the time, it's been featured on a lot of national programs and internationally, so here in the U.S. and abroad. Let me know in the comments, and we'll do some more. If you like this type of content, also please give a thumbs up and subscribe if you're so inclined. I'd love to have you along for the journey. And I want to thank you very much for taking a moment to watch this video. Take care.